Hey, Sens fans, welcome to season 4, episode 27 of the Senstennial podcast. And today we're excited to welcome Ryan Hyndman to the show. Ryan is currently a writer for the Hockey News, and his podcast, the Hockey Bandwagon Podcast, is also now a new member of the Hockey Podcast Network. So, Ryan, congrats on the writing gig and congrats on your podcast joining THPN.
Thank you so much, guys. I'm excited to kind of dive a little bit more into the Sens community here with a few more things going on my plate. So great, it kind of leads to a few more opportunities here, meeting a bunch more guys like you. So always happy to do it, and I'm excited to talk some Sens.
Hell yeah. So before we get into that, we just want to thank you for joining us tonight. You've done a good job with your first few articles for the Hockey News, so we thought we'd reach out and have you on. And with that said, I'll pass it off to Bennett to get us underway here.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And thanks, Ryan, for joining us. Great to have you on. First, talk to us about your path to get to where you are today, writing for the Senators, for the Hockey News, getting into podcasting. What got you into the world of sports journalism, and why hockey journalism in particular?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that I've dove a little bit more into the journalism side because that's definitely not where it started. I've been a lifelong hockey fan, like most of us, I'm sure. And I decided to pursue that a little bit more for my education, taking sport management at Brock University. So focusing a little bit more on the business side of sport. So that was kind of the path I decided that was going, and still probably is going to be a little bit more for me. But on the side along the way, me and my buddy Mitch kind of decided to start a podcast because who wouldn't want to talk about hockey for a few more hours every week and kind of just see where it goes. Luckily for us, we've gotten a little bit of traction, and so that's how originally I kind of got into the media side of things, and then slowly just through a few things with Brock, and I'm now here at Dalhousie University. I've been lucky enough to write a bit for school sports, and then through Steve Warren, he has his podcast on the Ottawa Senators as well. So I remember he did an outreach for writers for that a little bit while back, and I did a few articles for him while back, and since he's picked up this now as the editor role of the Hockey News Ottawa, he kind of circled back and asked if I'd be willing to do some writing for him. So lucky enough, I kind of been able to get in there and get a little bit more exposure for my stuff.
Yeah, that's really cool. And we've had Steve Warren, sorry, on the show before, and great
He's the
dude.
best.
So yeah, he awesome dude, really nice guy. So happy that you got that gig.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks again for popping on. And I mean, we're happy to have as many Sens fans as we possibly can on the pod here. But the Senators have some key decisions to make this off season, and none are obviously more pressing than the cat himself, Alex DeBrincat. What do you think that the Senators should be doing, and what do you think the likelihood is that he's on the team next season?
So my opinion on this has changed a lot throughout the past, let's say, year, as I'm sure it has a lot of Sens fans. If you would have asked me a few months ago, I would have said absolutely balls to the walls. Let's sign this guy, whatever it takes. He is an amazing player, and there's no doubting that. I think he's worth every bit of probably over $8 million on a long-term deal. I just don't see that being a major fit in Ottawa now when you take a little bit more of a step back and look at things with the cap, kind of how it's going. And I would like to see the Ottawa Senators make a huge effort to sign Sanderson to a big money long-term extension. And if you do that to DeBrincat as well, it makes that a heck of a lot harder to do so and keep some other pieces down the road as well. So I think it probably is best to kind of move on and see what you can get in a trade. I think the market will be strong enough that you can recuperate a good return, especially if you can find a situation that you can get an extension in place as well. And I think it's probably very likely that we've kind of seen him play his last game as an Ottawa Senator, unfortunately. I just think with too much kind of turmoil going on in the offseason, now we have a little bit more clarity, but I still think it's going to take a long time to get some decisions in place. I'm not sure if it's going to be enough to kind of have both sides come together before a decision has to be made, essentially.
Yeah, and it's a bit of an interesting situation because with Alex DeBrincat, it seems like he likes the team. It seems like he likes the coach. Obviously, there was talk that he really wanted this ownership thing to have,
Right.
some sort of semblance of coming together. And obviously, we have that now, although it might be a little too late to really salvage that or walk that back. What's been said in public, but at least through sources or what have you, rumors. But with that said, like I would really like him to come back. It seems like he wants to stay in the United States, though, which understandable. The guy's from the US. I know Ottawa has a lot of American players on their roster, of course. Norris, Brady being two of the big ones. Jake Sanderson, of course, is going to be a superstar, so we got him. But it might just be a case of where he feels more comfortable at home. So on that note, you wrote an article about Alex DeBrincat, and you made some mock proposals of trades where DeBrincat would go whichever club for some differing returns. Some of them you had futures, some had a mix of futures and roster players who could make an impact now. And then, even maybe a trade in there that was like a 1-for-1 for a starting caliber goalie. So, with those trades of the ones you proposed, is there a particular one that you really think makes complete sense for both teams involved, plus like taking in Alex DeBrincat and maybe his preferences?
Yeah, and I'll start with saying I know absolutely nothing about where this is going to go. I just thought it was a good idea to kind of take a step back and what look might be realistic, because Sens fans were throwing all sorts of packages out there, which I'm guilty of myself. But so I essentially went to Cap Friendly and I looked at the other team side of view from all these different teams that have kind of been linked: Carolina, Dallas, Detroit. And certainly the one that interests me the most is the one you kind of alluded to there, is with Nashville, is potentially getting UC Saros back, an elite goaltender. I'm not sure how realistic that is, with Nashville kind of going through their own little retool, with Barry Trotz coming in and wanting to kind of put his own stamp on the team. Maybe they're looking to kind of dive right in with Askarov as a starting goalie and bring in another scorer with DeBrincat. Who knows? But that's certainly the one I would look at as being the most beneficial to the Ottawa Senators right now.
Light the lamp during the hockey playoffs with DraftKings Sportsbook. New customers can make a $5 bet and score $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN only at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Massachusetts, call 800-327-5050 or visit gamblinghelplinema.org. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467369. In Kansas, call 1-800-522-4700. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino Resorts, 21 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/hockeyterms.
Welcome back, everyone. Now that you got to listen to that beautifully done ad, we're going to talk about goaltenders, and we'll pass it off to Bennett to get into that.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And a recent article that you've written, Ryan, talked about another key issue for the Senators, which is goaltending. You discussed, probably the biggest goaltending name that's potentially available right now, which is Connor Hellebuyck from the Winnipeg Jets. And what making a move for him could look like from a Senators perspective. And you said in your piece that you thought that Hellebuyck would not be the guy to help the Sens move forward. And you said the three reasons being the cost to acquire him, cap considerations, and just like how he would fit with this team, given that we have guys like Sogard and Merlainen in the lineup. Would you mind elaborating a little bit more on some of these pitfalls and why you don't think it would be a fit?
Yeah, absolutely. Starting with the cost of acquisition, being an elite goaltender in this league, I'm sure Winnipeg is going to ask the moon in return. And if not, look for a situation also where he might want to sign an extension. And that's another reason why I would be concerned about bringing him into Ottawa, is that one, he is not only looking for potentially more money than DeBrincat on a long-term deal, but I'm not sure he would necessarily want to stay in Ottawa the way he's expressed his concerns to get out of Winnipeg. I think he's another one of those guys who wants to probably get to the States and sign his big deal down there. So I think that would be a major concern, along with the cost of maybe giving up another first round pick or top prospect when that's starting to kind of dwindle a little bit here. Trading a few recently in good deals, but nonetheless, they're gone. And with Tyler Boucher maybe not necessarily looking like an impact player either. That's 3 straight years of first round picks that won't be in the lineup. So I'm not sure if they want to do that again. So that would be another huge one. And just finally, this isn't a huge one for me because I do think they need to address the goaltending, but blocking guys like Sogard, if they do kind of make a massive trade like a UC Saros or a Hellebuyck, those are guys that are going to be here for long term, hopefully kind of a long-term solution. And we've seen Ottawa lose younger talent under that kind of situation before. So I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. Goaltending is voodoo, but I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world if they kind of just took a step back and didn't take a huge swing either.
Yeah, I feel personally that Hellebuyck is far too good for the Sens to not kick tires on, and goaltenders like him rarely become available. Won the Vezina a couple of seasons ago, as you say, which drives his cost up. But I mean, I'd be willing to sacrifice about anything to get him onto the team, simply because he's an upgrade over what we have. Goaltending is this team's biggest weakness at this point. The certainty of having a guy like Hellebuyck where you don't have to worry about that anymore, presuming that, one can get a deal done with him to sign longer term. I think I'd be willing to give up a lot, be it Pinto, Gray, DeBrincat. Like, we expect, some combination of that plus maybe some picks. To me, that's worth it because we don't have anybody remotely of Hellebuyck's caliber in the system, and Merlainen and Sogard are too raw at this point to be of any help to us in the next 2 or 3 seasons, which is when we need to compete because, Giroux's going to be gone after that. Sanderson and Pinto are going to start making big money. And I think time is not on our side when it comes to goaltending, and we've got to make a splash. But sorry, go ahead.
No, just I couldn't agree more that they probably do have to adjust goaltending. I'm just not necessarily sure that Connor Hellebuyck would be the fit. Like, obviously he's an elite goaltender, and like you said, they probably wouldn't be doing their job if they didn't at least kick tires on him. But that's kind of where I would like them just kick tires on a UC Saros and see if you can kind of pull off a trade like that. I'm not sure if it's possible, but I like that fit. I think he's signed for 2 more years on 6 point something. I just like that fit a heck of a lot more than having to re-sign Hellebuyck for potentially a 9+ on a long-term deal next year.
So we've talked about Hellebuyck, and obviously we've talked about Saros. Which goalies on the market do you think that the Sens should either be trading for or signing in the free agency? Because I know in your article you said like they should address it, but maybe to a lesser or a smaller style move. Did you have anybody in mind?
Yeah, I did, and kind of one of the number 1 guys I had in mind is definitely off the board for the Ottawa Senators now, and that's Adin Hill. Before he kind of carried his team to a Stanley Cup and is now going to get the bag in free agency. I I thought he was a huge sleeper option to kind of come in and be a tandem with Forsberg potentially next year on a kind of lower risk deal. But now that's not going to happen. So I would look potentially towards a guy like Korpisalo, although he might still get a little bit more considering just how weak the goaltenders are this year. Maybe you look at an Antti Ranta, or I'm trying to remember everyone who's in free agency this
year.
year.
Freddie Anderson's also a free agent. I don't know what Carolina's plans are with him.
Yeah, whichever the two they don't look at. Although I don't love Freddie because I think he'll probably still be looking for a bigger deal. But I think a guy like Varlamov was in there too, a veteran backup kind of tandem guy who's had that experience in the past. So I don't know, a little bit more of a short-term fix, that a guy who has experience, something like you would have wished Talbot would have been for you coming in. But unfortunately, that just hasn't been the case.
And I think obviously we did a goalie video a couple weeks ago, and Aiden Hill was one of my selections because I thought, we could get him probably cheap because he is injury ridden. And then he went and had one of the best goaltending performances in recent memory. So definitely not an option. For those that are listening and are always clamoring for goalie content, I'm still sure like Karel Vejmelka is definitely an option out of Arizona. This is also assuming that Alex DeBrincat is gone. And if Alex DeBrincat is gone, I might be going off the board a little bit with this. And I'm not trading and I'm not signing anybody, but I am offer sheeting Jeremy Swayman for 5, or actually just a little under. So we only have to give them a second and a third because they can't afford it. They would be clamoring to shed salary. And like, I kind of feel like a bunch of GMs would love to watch Boston crumble and just nobody do business with them. Like, sorry, we're going to take Taylor Hall next week. So no, we're good. And I think it would just be such an interesting move where the Ottawa Senators get their starting goalies locked up for a couple of years because Boston just could not sign them whatsoever. That would be unreal.
Wouldn't that be such a power move from an incoming GM?
Absolutely.
We're gonna touch on the ownership, changes in a moment. But just like, could you imagine if some guy comes in, first move of the Andlauer era, is just plunging the dagger into the back of the Boston Bruins? I mean, like, that guy would be getting high fives in every NHL venue that he walked into.
Yeah.
I'm
no more hugs.
I'm all for GMs being more aggressive and having more creative moves like that. So I would love to see more qualifying offers. As for Swayman, I think that would be obviously a great fit. Let me throw another name at you that could potentially be qualified or QO. It is Philip Gustafson. I think he's in the same position, but I doubt he would come back given some of his content, his comments. But I just thought that was a kind of a funny one that has been floated out there for a few different teams, not Ottawa, but I would love to see one of these younger goaltenders just in that situation, or just one of the. I love the drama. I love what it causes. I love it.
Like, go out, secure the bag, and screw over a team. Like, there's nothing better. Nothing better.
It's great. Yeah,
absolutely. We all want to see the Senators just go out and arrive with a bang that they're back. And speaking of, your most recent article was about obviously the biggest news in Ottawa and Senators land this week, which is Michael Andlauer securing his bid to purchase the Ottawa Senators. This was announced yesterday. Was that yesterday? Oh my God, it's been a long 24 hours.
Actually, Bennett will probably cut the yesterday because I think we're going to schedule this for Friday or Saturday. So
yeah, that's fine. So what are your thoughts on that when the news first broke, Ryan?
Yeah, I think that was probably the conclusion we were all expecting by the time it got to the end. Just within the last week or so there, it looked like it was either going to be the Kimmels or Andlauer. And with kind of some of the reporting that had been done in the last few days, it looked like the Kimmels maybe still were looking to shore up some financing, or more were based on borrowing money, whereas the Andlauers was more straight up. So it kind of looked like it was heading in this direction. I think it's great for Ottawa. He seems like he's by far the most dedicated to winning a Stanley Cup, which is fantastic. I would be lying to you if I said I wasn't disappointed that Ryan Reynolds is not involved in the process after having his name at least semi-attached. Just knowing what he's done with Wrexham over there and watching that documentary series, I'm all for the content. So I would have loved something like that. But honestly, I'm not upset with Andlauer at all. I'm excited that it's over and that Sens fans can get to know the guy, because he does seem like a wonderful human being from everything I've seen so far.
Yeah, and I definitely like the comments you made about, obviously winning, but he talked about the fan base and the community. And I think that's really important. Like, he didn't even really touch, unless I missed it, but he didn't touch on, any arena plans or anything, which of course are important. But to have the fans at the forefront instead of the real estate, like we've kind of heard from other groups in this process, that's really nice to hear. And I think obviously a new arena will come in time, but for right now, let's focus on what really matters, which is the on ice product, front office, coaching, what have you. Get that in shape, and then start thinking about the nicer, upgrades or what have you that'll come externally. So, on that note, I guess playing off what I just said, what do you think will be the biggest change or changes to the team with Andlauer coming in and being at the helm?
Yeah, see, this is a tough one for next season specifically, anyways, is that I'm not sure what the timeline is going to be here moving forward, and when he's actually going to be able to make the decisions he wants to make. Because I'm sure, just based on all of the big names that are reporting it, that Steve Staios is going to be in this organization in some capacity. It would not shock me if maybe for the first year at least it's like a senior advisor, or maybe they give him the president of hockey operations role, just so that he is kind of that liaison between Andlauer and Dorion. So he kind of has his man in the sky and one hand on the wheel at least, is kind of how I would envision things playing out, at least in the short term future. As for the coach, I have no clue. Personally, I think I would like to see a new voice behind the bench, but I would not be upset if they kind of give DJ a little bit more rope here, just considering how all these decisions are going to have to be made in the next couple weeks or month, or more, really. Like, it's going to be, I don't know how Andlauer is really going to have time to pull all of this off before the draft, let alone like training camp, right? So in that sense, I'm not sure how much change is going to be in place for next season, but I do expect Andlauer to have a huge stamp on this team moving forward in the front management. Yeah.
And I was reading that, it's possible for the board of governors for the NHL to at least agree, yeah, I guess in principle on Andlauer owning the team, so that he at least can start getting his ducks in a row, if you will, and taking action for the team, even though the sale won't be finalized until the fall. So that was interesting to read. Also, I don't know if anyone caught this, but Ken Holland in Edmonton was asked about, Andlauer and the connection with Steve Staios, and he basically said that he hasn't had that conversation with Steve Staios, but if Andlauer was calling and was going to offer him some sort of job, he said he's never been one to stand in the way of career advancement, so he definitely wouldn't decline Ottawa's permission to speak with Staios. So that was interesting and obviously good to know, because there's a lot of talk in the hockey world that he's a great hockey mind and could find a GM role and be successful in that role in the near future. So definitely someone who I'd be interested in coming into the front office in some capacity. And I guess we'll see what happens on that front.
Yeah, there was some talk too, I think, that he was pretty analytically like thinking forward in Hamilton anyways. So I'd be excited to see kind of just how he more broadly builds out the hockey operations staff here in Ottawa, because we know that it's been kind of on the lighter end of things for for a long time in comparison to a lot of other franchises. So I would love to see that built out and kind of what his vision is there as well.
Cool. Well, on that note, unless Matt or Bennett, do you have any other questions for Ryan before we call it a show tonight?
Well, less a question, but you mentioned you wouldn't be disappointed to see if he gave DJ a little bit more rope. I think there's one person on this podcast by the name of Mr. Matthew Naif who would be very disappointed if DJ was given more rope.
When you said rope and DJ, the only thing I imagined was not him having a longer leash as the Senators head coach.
Hey,
yeah,
and
it was tying him to a trebuchet and flinging
him, launching him out of the head coaching position.
I'm all with you, and I was on that boat almost all year, but I just think the way that it's gone down this summer and how long this has taken, I would not be shocked to see Andlauer kind of come in and stand pat for a little bit. The guys seem to love him, and I can't deny that. Like as much as I maybe don't love his coaching style and can see how maybe this team would be improved by a new voice, you can't deny how much the players really enjoy playing for him. So for that reason alone, I think I would give him the benefit of the doubt if Andlauer doesn't necessarily have a guy, which maybe he does. There is a name out there in Patrick Waugh, but I'm not sure. It hasn't been nearly as credible sources kind of linking the two. So we'll see.
Yeah. And I also heard Claude Julien attached with his name. So it'll be interesting to see if either of those guys come into the fold at some time in the future. But on that note, Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. For those of you watching, you can find Ryan on Twitter at RB Hyndman, HYNDMAN. And follow him on Twitter. He's writing for the Hockey News. There's some great stuff out there. So check out his content. Like I said, Bandwagon Hockey Podcast, now a member of the Hockey Podcast Network. So that's really cool too. And, before we let you go, are there any things on the horizon for you that you'd like to throw out here?
Not too much. It was just great meeting all of you guys. I've watched the show from afar here and there. I love all of the hockey podcasts that are kind of popping up. I love the community around it. So when we got the opportunity to join the network, I think it was a no-brainer to kind of connect and meet with more like-minded hockey fans. So I'm excited to kind of talk with you guys more here down the road. And once again, thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
It's been great.
And for everyone watching, you can take a look below and see all the platforms that we're on, and go follow us on any of those. Please subscribe if you've enjoyed the video, and if you're listening, thank you for listening. And you can find us at Senstennial on Twitter or at the Senstennial on Instagram or Reddit. We're also on the Sens Discord, so you can go there and chat with us. Ryan, thank you again for your time, and I'm sure we'll talk again in the future. But we got to end it off with the classic, guys. Go Sens, go, baby.
Go Sens, go.
Go Sens, go.
Cheers. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, guys.